All right. So we talked about how there are a lot of criteria to become an S-Corp. Not just anyone can become an S-Corp, and especially if you're trying to be a large corporation, you're not going to be an S-Corp. Now, for federal income tax purposes, S-corporations are subject to certain restrictions on their eligible shareholders. These are going to be here to make sure that the benefits of an S-Corp are limited to small businesses and their owners. We've got some main eligibility criteria. Make sure you memorize these. You could be asked multiple choice questions or full-on sims that ask you, is this an eligible S-Corp? Or if any of these requirements are breached once it has been an S-Corp, it is no longer an S-Corp, right? They've lost their S-Corp status. So the number of shareholders, an S-Corporation can have no more than 100 shareholders. That's can be tricky because they may say, oh, well, the S-Corp has 200 shares. Okay, great. That doesn't break the criteria here. It's 100 shareholders. So these are going to be the individuals holding those shares. So if you've got 100 shareholders and they're each holding 2 shares, that is an important distinction. It's going to be 100 shareholders. That is the requirement. Now, in counting the number of shareholders, family members and their estates can be treated as a single shareholder as long as they meet certain criteria outlined by the IRS. Think back, what is this referring to? Going once, going twice. This is going to related parties, kind of thinking about what's your combined ownership of an entity through family members, estates, all of that, kind of like double counting it. Types of shareholders, well, these are the eligible types. It's mainly going to be individuals, right? That's what we're going to refer to on the exam. We'll see this as well. Only U.S. citizens and resident aliens can be shareholders in an S-Corp. So again, even within the fact that these have to be individuals, only U.S. citizens and resident aliens, meaning non-U.S. citizens living in the United States, can be shareholders in an S-Corp. Estates as well, the estate of a deceased S-Corporation shareholder is an eligible shareholder, and certain trusts, certain types of trusts, such as grantor trusts, testamentary trusts. I'm not even going to get into the terms here. I kind of mentioned grantor trusts in the trust lesson, but not going to worry about this too much. Qualified subchapter S trusts are allowed to be S-Corporation shareholders. Just know that certain types of trusts can be as well, but not going to really worry about the specifics of those. Here are just, well, obviously everyone else is ineligible, but here it is written out because you may see a lot of multiple choice questions asking you about who is eligible and who is ineligible. Now, non-resident aliens, as we said, aliens meaning non-US citizens. Resident aliens are allowed, but non-resident aliens are not allowed. So if I'm living in Canada and I am not a US citizen, then guess what? I am not allowed. But if I'm living in Canada and I am a US citizen, then that's fine, right? I'm just living in Canada temporarily. Obviously, it probably depends on my citizenship status. If I permanently live in Canada, I'm not an immigration lawyer or an expert in that. But if I am not a US citizen anymore because of a reason such as that may be outlined in a question, then you are no longer eligible. But if you are a resident of Canada, a citizen of Canada living in the US, you would be eligible because you are a resident alien. Now, individuals who are not US citizens and do not meet the substantial presence test, which we mentioned in a few lessons, for residency cannot be S-Corporation shareholders. Corporations and partnerships, C-Corps and other S-Corps and partnerships cannot be shareholders here, really dealing with just individuals. Certain types of trusts, all these other trusts that we have seen, these are not allowed to be shareholders in an S-Corp. IRAs cannot be shareholders in an S-Corp. An LLC with more than one owner, this would need to be taxed as a partnership. Partnerships are not eligible shareholders of an S-Corp, so we're just running through the list here of all these ineligible shareholders. And lastly, tax-exempt orgs. Generally, tax-exempt organizations, such as charities and non-for-profit organizations, are not allowed to be shareholders in an S-Corp. Now, in summary, eligible shareholders for an S-Corp for federal purposes are primarily limited to U.S. citizens, resident aliens. I would kind of pause it there, but yes, also estates of deceased shareholders, certain trusts, and certain tax-exempt organizations. Now, the S-Corp, it's the S-Corp's requirement and their duty to make sure that these are the only types of people that are shareholders. Because what happens if, because you may be thinking, and I will get to it at a certain point, what happens if a share is sold from an individual to a corporation? Okay, it's by accident, right? But that's still a legal transaction. What would happen? It's kind of like, boom, all of a sudden, the S-Corp reverts back to a C-Corp. Similarly, if I'm an individual, I'm holding an S-Corp share, and I sell it to a partnership, then this S-Corp, boom, it gets smacked by the IRS, turns into a C-Corp. Now, in reality, it's not that simple. There's going to be checks and balances to make sure that no one can just go and, kind of screw over the whole entity. There's going to be bylaws and items and requirements that need to be checked off before a sale can happen. So but keep in mind, if theoretically there were no rules, that's what would happen. And understanding that for the exam will be helpful. Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.